Hello, y'all, and welcome back. So, in the last module, we looked at the Stoics, and the Stoics are not just rationalist, but hyper-rationalist. Rationalism is a philosophical school according to which reason is the final authority and the ultimate guide to life. And the Stoics are not unique in being rationalist. They follow Socrates, who, as we saw, has very strongly rationalist tendencies. They also follow Plato, who holds that for the good life, reason needs to rule in the soul. And for what it's worth, they follow, to a certain extent, Aristotle, who holds that the good life is an active life of reason in accordance with virtue. The thinker that we're going to be looking at in this module goes in exactly the opposite direction, and that thinker is Epicurus. Now, the Epicureans, unlike the Stoics, are followers of one person, Epicurus, this thinker. And Epicurus goes, as I say, in the opposite direction from all previous philosophy, or at least the vast majority of previous ancient philosophy. And I want to pick up with that second question that I asked you in the exercise discussion questions for this module, the happiest time or period in your life. Virtually everyone, in response to this question, myself included, will point to a relatively recent period in their life. The exception here might be, older people who might say some time earlier, maybe when their kids were young or something like that. I confess I haven't done this question with people really over the age of maybe like 40 very much. But by and large, people will say some time that's relatively recent in their life, or certainly sometime in their adult life. Epicurus says that you've got that wrong. If that's the answer you give, you have that wrong, respectfully. He says the time in your life when you are happiest is when you are a small child. Now, barring tragic situations where children are exposed to genuine trauma, as a small child, he says you're happiest because you ran and you played, you slept great, you ate whatever you wanted. You didn't think about what people thought of you. You didn't think about your appearance. You didn't think about your diet. You didn't think about your grades, or your finances, or your career, or your future. As a matter of fact, you didn't think at all. And the reason for this is either you didn't possess reason, and we've discussed this, very small children don't possess reason. They really just can't answer why questions about their own behavior. Or perhaps it's because you possess reason, but you don't navigate life on the basis of it. So here's what I mean by that. My daughter, who's 9, possesses reason. She can give very clear, lucid, even grown-up-like answers to questions of why did she do something. But it's pretty clear also from talking to her that if she ran her life, she would not run it on the basis of reason. So she would eat candy probably 3 meals a day, and she would have basically no bedtime, okay? So you are happiest when you are a small child, either having no reason or not navigating life on the basis of reason. Epicurus says, when did your life start to get difficult, mentally and emotionally, right? Because that's the realm we're concerned with. When did your life start to get difficult? When did you have your first encounter with anxiety, fear, worry, depression, stress, self-consciousness? It's when you started to think, when you started to think things through, navigate life on the basis of reason, then you started to worry, what do people think of me? What are my grades going to be? What's my appearance like? What's my reputation? Thought, in particular, rational thought and reason, says Epicurus, is not your friend. In fact, it is the source of all of your problems. All thinking is effectively overthinking. To combat anxiety, to combat worry, fear, depression, and to pursue tranquility in the way that we really want to do, along with these Hellenistic schools, these other Hellenistic schools, you need to go the opposite direction. In the words of Bruce Lee, don't think, feel. Bruce Lee is not, to my knowledge, an Epicurean, but it would be difficult to impossible to put Epicurean philosophy more succinctly than he does in this one line, don't think, feel. In other words, the Epicureans endorse a very early version of what is later known as Empiricism, a philosophy according to which not reason, but the 5 senses, along perhaps with other things like your emotions and what we might call your gut, are, or should be, the final authority and the ultimate guide to life. So you stop thinking, stop brutally overanalyzing, overthinking everything, let go, and go with your gut. Now, when you pick a final authority in life, a few things happen. One thing is that you get answers to a lot of very big questions. So here's what I mean. Supposing you say that some overarching power like God is going to be your final authority. Well, God, whatever your source of God's wisdom or insight is going to give you answers to questions like, who am I? What's your identity, right? Fundamentally, what are you made of? What are you here for? What, for that matter, is real? What is the purpose of life? Questions like this. And so the Epicureans, they say our final authority is our 5 senses. As empiricists, this is just the only thing that we're going to trust. So, for instance, this does then give us a clear answer to the question, what is real? What is real? Physical stuff. Right? Why? Because that's what your five senses detect. If you can't see, smell, taste, hear, or touch it, it's not real at all. Okay? Now, the conclusions they draw from this are not what you might immediately suppose. Okay? But they say everything is physical. Now, for the purposes of this course, we're not asking about metaphysics, we're asking about ethics. So the question that we ask is, what is good? What is good? In particular, we say, what is the good? What is the ultimate source of good, the thing in terms of which all other goodness is to be understood? Well, how do we answer this? As a good Epicurean, you would consult your final authority, which is your five senses. And the Epicureans say it's obvious. Your five senses immediately, clearly, and unambiguously say, pleasure is the good. Pleasure is the good. Not a good, because everyone thinks that. It is the good, meaning it's the only good thing, and anything else that is good is only good to the extent that it centrally involves pleasure. This is an ethical view known as hedonism, which you've no doubt heard this term. It is from the Greek word hedone, meaning pleasure. And it is, again, simply that pleasure is the good. So this, for all intents and purposes, in a nutshell, is Epicurean ethics. Now, the obvious response to this is that that is a shallow philosophy. Nobody denies, you might say, I might say, that pleasure is good. Obviously, it's an important part of the good life. But the idea that you measure the goodness or quality morally now of a person's life by the extent to which it involves pleasure, or the degree of pleasure, the intensity of pleasure, that just seems wrong. It seems like it's possible to be not a very good person, but have a lot of fun or good or pleasurable experiences. So, at best, this seems a little bit shallow. Well, the Epicureans are more than prepared for this objection. Sometimes reading them, it seems like that's all they do is prepare for this objection. So we're going to see how they respond to it in the next video. Thanks.